Now we have a quorum, and we have passed the appointed hour. Agenda item number one, under item number 1, confirmation minutes, held on the 9th of November 2012, which is a joint meeting with the development panel. Up till now, the Secretary has not received any proposed amendment. So, shall we confirm the minutes? Thank you very much. All right. Item 2, information paper issued since the last meeting. None. Item 3, items for discussion at the next meeting. Paper CB1 1153/1213 bracket 01. List of follow-up actions. Another paper LC CB1 1115/1213 bracket 2. List of outstanding items for discussion. Shall we invite the government officials in the room first? Members, at our next regular meeting, the date is the 3rd of June 2013, the administration proposed to discuss the following item, and they are continuous enhancements in modular flat design for public housing development of the Housing Authority. The next proposed item is the implementation of the Residential Properties First-Hand Sales Ordinance and the work of the Sales of First-Hand Residential Properties Authority. I would like to know if members would like to discuss these two items, and do members have further suggestions? Thank you very much. So we'll have these two items for our discussion at the next meeting. Item 4, Public Works Program, item B195SC, Community Hall at Ming Road, Kwun. Paper CB1 1115/1213 bracket 03. The administration's paper on Public Works Program, item number B195SC, Community Hall at Ming Road, Kwun. May I welcome the government officials, and they are Mr. Pescott, Permanent Secretary for Transport and Housing, Ms. Ada Fong, Deputy Director of Housing Department, Mrs. Kenneth Wong, Civil Engineer, Housing Department, Ellen Hui, Acting Chief Architect, Mr. Eric Hui, Assistant Director, Home Affairs Department, Ms. Carmen Yu, Assistant District Officer, Kwun Tong District Office. Welcome to you all. Right, may I invite the officials to take us through the paper, please?
Brief introduction, then we'll take you through a PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Chairman, this agenda item is about the proposal to upgrade Project Community Hall at Ming Road, Kwun, to Category A. Project serves to meet rising demand of residents for community facilities in that district. We will demolish the existing Sao Maoping Central Estate Community Centre at Ming Road and construct a new community hall. The new community hall will comprise a hall with standard internal floor area of about 400 square metres and a seating capacity of 450 persons. The important thing about this site is that the new community hall will be jointly developed with a public rental housing development of some 300 new units within the site. The estimated cost of the community hall is $135.5 million in money of the day prices. Subject to funding approval, construction works for the project are scheduled to commence in March 2014 for completion by December 2017, so as to tie in with the scheduled completion of the adjoining public rental housing development. Upon completion of the community hall, the facilities will be handed over to the Home Affairs Department for management and maintenance. We'd like to take you briefly through this presentation to give you a better idea, and I'd ask Deputy Director Ms. Ada Fung to elaborate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We would like to seek member support for upgrading the projects to Category A so as to build a community hall adjoining the public housing development at Sao Ming Road, Kwun, Tong. We propose to demolish the existing Sao Ping Central Estate Community Center and build a new standard community hall in situ. The new community hall will be within the boundary of the public housing development at Sao Ming Road. The design and construction of the new community hall will be commissioned, will be implemented by the Housing Department. It has a total size of 1,095 square meters. It will be built together with public housing block. Now, at present, there is an open car park, and next to it is the Sao Ping Central Community Center. The Sao Ping bus terminus, there is the Sao Ping South Potard, Hill Lai Court, so on and so forth. The proposed community hall will be a two-story freestanding building with a height of about 11 meters. The proposed facilities include a 450-meter seat multi-purpose hall and a stage. And there will also be toilets, Z&M facilities, a stage storeroom, so on and so forth. On the first floor, management office, multi-purpose stage meeting room, multi-purpose conference room, and ancillary facilities including storeroom, mechanical and electrical plant rooms. The justification is as follows. There is a population of about 86,000 residents. The community hall at present is too small and is not able to satisfy the strong demand for community hall facilities. And there is a rising demand. At present, the hall is only 280 square meters with 180 seats. The headroom is substandard, and there are columns in the middle. The Kwun Tong District Council has been asking the government to redevelop the Sao Ping Central ECC into a standard community hall. On the 8th of January 2010 and the 17th of March 2011, we consulted the Kwun Tong District Council and also the Housing Committee of the same District Council. We consulted them on the community hall and the public housing project, and the council and its committee also supported the administration's proposal according to money of the day price. Total will be $135.5 million. As for the timetable, with the blessing of this panel, we will bring the project before the PWSC and the FC in November and December this year, and works will commence in March 2014 and is expected to be completed in December 2017. We urge members to support this community hall project. Thank you. Good. Members, today we have 3 items on the agenda instead of 2, which is our usual practice. We therefore have limited time, so 3 minutes each for questions and answers. A show of please enroll. And if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest, you need to declare such interest according to ROP Section 83A. You need to disclose your interest, and you also need to pay special attention to the voting arrangement under Section 84 of ROP. Fernando Chang, Wu Chi Wai, Tony Chair, Wong Yong Man, Alan Leung. Anyone else? If not, then that's for the first round. 3 minutes each. Questions and answers included. Fernando Chang. We, of course, support rebuilding the community hall. There is a big population in the district, and there is a strong demand for public service. The community hall at present has 4 voluntary groups providing different services, including the Kowloon Federation, which provide new immigrant service, and the Church of Assembly providing another kind of service, and also the Christian Action providing job training, and another NGO providing childcare service. These groups do not know the detailed arrangements. Will they be relocated? And after redevelopment, will they be rehoused in situ in the same new building? And in the design, can more space be provided apart from the community hall so as to house other much-needed services? Say, for example, daycare centers, training centers in Kwun Tong. The waiting time for such places is about 3 years. Has the Social Welfare Department asked you for space for provision of such service? The department, please.
There is no provision for reproviding the welfare facilities on site, but we're working with Social Welfare Department and HAD to try to arrange the continued provision, which is very important, not necessarily on this site, but within other areas within our existing estate. As far as location at the moment, we haven't got the final location sorted out, but for example, the Integrated Children and Youth Service Centre, operated by the Boys and Girls Club, funded by Social Welfare Department, is already looking at an empty bay in Sao Wong House of Sao Ma Ping Estate South, and we'll do the same with the other facilities. Perhaps if HAD might like to add some points to that.
I would like to say this. Yes, the answer is quite clear. That is, in the future, there will be no welfare facilities inside this new community center. So this is like a retrogradation, because how come now you have these NGOs providing social services? How come in the new building you do not have room for them? Who's going to supplement?
This is designed as a community hall, Mr. Chairman, not as a multi-purpose welfare facility. So there is no provision for other uses within the site. And indeed, the whole point of this site is that it's actually redevelopment to provide public housing. As I said in my opening remarks, there will be 300 public housing units provided within the site. So that's the maximum gain we could get on it. But we accept the need to provide alternate locations within the same district for these welfare provisions, and that's what we're working towards. I don't expect that they'll close down, but they will be provided with accommodation elsewhere.
主席，許國新先生係咪你想補充下？因為張超雄議員問到咧，即係現有嘅服務咧係點樣可以有？
Can you supplement, Mr. Hui? How can the existing services continue, and how would the follow-up work be like? Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just now, Mr. Pascoe has already explained to you. Now, there are 3 departments, that is Housing Department, HAD, and SWD. Now they are discussing as to how to reprovision these services in the same district, and we will assist them in their relocation. Now, when we look at these NGOs, actually the offices do not need to be put together. We are talking about an institute redevelopment, so they cannot be relocated on the same site immediately. So if that is the case, because the old community center will have to be demolished, and then they will have to move away and then move back. So maybe if they are moved elsewhere, that would be a better arrangement. So can you tell us more? Now, in the future, for this new community center, after the redevelopment, the original welfare facilities will be relocated elsewhere, right? So they will not disappear. Well, this is not a multi-purpose social welfare service center. As Mr. Prescott said, this is the redevelopment of an old public housing estate, and because there is an old community center there, and this community center is substandard. So we are going to redevelop it so that it can be up to the present standard. So that's why there is no space for these NGOs. And by 2017, this project will be completed. And that's several years down the road. Now, if the NGOs can operate in other locations, we do not see the need of moving them back to this site. Yes, the demolition is for improving the facilities there. But these NGOs have been serving this district. So according to your timetable, you will start the demolition work in 1 year's time. And these NGOs do not know where will they be relocated. So I really cannot support this project. You have to make the proper arrangements before I can give you my support. Okay, this is your position. Just now they told us that they are still discussing this. So we would like to ask the departments and bureaus to tell us their discussion results as early as possible. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, 3 minutes. Just now, Dr. Chang asked a question. He wants to know more about the answer. So that's why I gave him more time. However, now we will stick to the 3-minute rule. Mr. Wu? Well, for this site, the housing department fought so hard for this site, but it's going to build only one block there. I think that is not satisfactory. Well, just now, Dr. Chang said something very important. Now, originally there is this community center, and there are all sorts of welfare facilities there, but you are going to move them away. Now, after moving them away, it means that in the whole of Sao Mau Ping, other vacant spaces will be filled. Now, Sao Mau Ping is a big district, so if we want new services in this district, then there will be no more space for these new services. So I think that you must pay attention to 2 points. Now, yes, we have a dire need for housing. So is it not too luxurious to build a stand-alone structure as a community hall? And also for the whole of Sao Mau Ping district, do we need space for other social welfare facilities? If so, I think in the redevelopment you should take this consideration, or you should make full use of the sites. Now maybe you can adopt a platform, a podium-like design, and this is good for the community. Now when I look at your design, now you are going to build this long row of building, and people will think that is a wall-like structure. So I hope that the HD can look at the whole site when it comes to development. That is, for the lower parts of the building can be used for community purpose, and for the superstructure can be used for residential purpose.
We're facing increasingly. We don't have enough sites to build public housing. We don't have enough sites to build hospitals, schools, welfare facilities, you name it. We don't have enough sites, particularly in the urban areas. So it's always going to be a compromise. We try our very best to get the best product, having consulted the district council, because at the end of the day we need to respond to what the district aspirations are. I can assure you, as I said before, in terms of these particular welfare provision, we will find space for them somewhere else. We will have new developments coming on stream, Anderson Road, for example, in due course, the Kai-Tak sites. And in those, we also always work with Social Welfare Department and the other departments to look at what should be provided. But on this particular site, frankly, we're already building up to the maximum. I would love to double the number of units I could get in, 600, 800, but I just can't do it because of the site constraint. So I don't disagree with you. I hear what you're saying, and we will try our best to put the best combination of uses on every site.
Well, Chairman, has the HD thought about this? That is, under the podium, you can build social welfare facilities, and above the podium, you can build residential blocks, and that would be more ideal. I hope that you can look in this direction. Maybe I can supplement. For the whole project, we already have a podium-like development. So in PLH development, in the PLH development, they also will provide other facilities. So we have to strike a balance among all the needs in a community. So there are facilities in the existing community center. We will definitely find other places to relocate them. Mr. Chao-Chin. I'm very concerned about what Dr. Zhang and Wu Chiwai said just now. Now we have limited land resources. In principle, we support this project, but we hope that the government can give us more information first for the existing welfare facilities or service providers. What will the long-term arrangement be like in the future? Now, if you are going to relocate them back to this site, you still need to have a temporary arrangement. So I hope that more information can be given to us so that we can have a clearer picture as to what the arrangement is like. Otherwise, if you just demolish it, then what will happen to these offices? And second, just now the Permanent Secretary told us that they have made full use of the sites already. And what does that mean? Well, we may have planned well ahead, and we don't know that the demand for land will be so keen nowadays. So have we really made full use of the site? And how about the plot ratio? And can we use the space underground? Maybe this will not bring about such huge impacts, but more facilities can be accommodated. We should have longer-term plans. I hope that the governments can give us more information so that we can be more reassured. Mr. Chair, for your first question, I think I have talked about this just now. That is, I have ask the government to give us more information after they have reached a conclusion. So I would like to ask the administration to answer your second question. That is, how can we tap more potential? How about moving underground? Can we have small space underground so that more social facilities can be provided?
When we've resolved all of the uses, of course, we'll happily come back and brief members. But I have to say I don't know how long that's going to take, because it's an ongoing discussion at the moment. But we will certainly come back and provide that information. In terms of the use of the site, of course, you have to look at it from the optimum use of the site. Going underground is not always easy because of the ground conditions, because of the circumstances. And indeed, quite often that is more cost than the value of the development would provide. However, in this case, for example, we will be putting in a connecting walkway and lift system to connect this site with housing estate sites further up the hill. So it's a sort of three-part development, and that's quite normal. We try to get the maximum use out of the site. Ada, do you want to add anything to that?
For this development, it covers the redevelopment of a community hall, and also there's a PLH development. And also there will be a lift tower and a walkway linking the upper Samoping estate to the lower areas. We hope that it will convenience the residents at the upper Samoping estates. And for the details, we will be telling members later, because today we're just talking about a community hall. Chairman, sorry, I know my time is up. Well, talking about convenience, maybe you need all sorts of facilities, for example, study rooms. I hope the administration will try to cater for the needs of the residents there. Now, for this site, when I look at its location, now, at the moment you have a community center there, and next to it there is a temporary open-air car park. So can you explain to me in greater details? So you will also include the site of the car park in the future development? Just now we also talked about a lift tower. So will you also make use of the site to build this tower? And in the future, are there standards for the facilities to be provided in a community center? We have Mr. Alan Hui here. We have cooperated before in Shatin. We have tried our best to improve the facilities at Shatin. So now we are building a new community hall. So can we really meet the needs of the residents there? Because in the past, the audio and visual facilities of such community centers were really poor. So we hope that such facilities can be upgraded. And also for people in the performing arts industry, they have been complaining that in the past no lockers have been provided to them. Now you have a storeroom, but I don't think that means lockers. So I would like to know that whether these new community halls will have better facilities. And I have a third question. Well, can we have a more compressed timetable? Because when I look at the timetable, you will need 3 hours and 9 months to build this. And Kwun Tong District Council really hopes that they can have a better community hall. So can you do it faster? Ms. Feng? Well, there are several points. Well, with regard to the standard facilities for community halls, maybe Mr. Hui can supplement later. For newly built community halls, the facilities are much better when they are compared to the old ones.
In Tong Tao, Tong Hui Estate, and also in Yau Tong, the new community halls are much better than the old ones. As for developing the open-air car park, now that open-air car park will be used to build the new community hall, and the old community hall will be demolished. The whole project will be built in tandem with the public housing block, including the foundation, the demolition, the superstructure, the lift towers, the footbridges. So all these parts will be conducted together. So in fact, we have compressed the timetable a lot. I hope members will support us so that we can get the money and then we can start working as soon as possible. Mr. Wang Yongman. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, at the House Committee meeting and at the plenary meeting, you speak with a loud voice in criticizing us, so I hope that you can speak louder when you chair this meeting. Now, we have 3 issues today, and 2 are related to Kowloon East, and we have 2 members from Kowloon East constituency. Now, the Kwun Tong District Council has been commenting on that, and the views made by Wu Chi-wai, I believe, have been made by the Kwun Tong District Council. The redevelopment of the community hall has got the blessing of the District Council and also the local people. So when the matter is before us, we are just going through the motions. I have certain questions. I agree that it should go ahead. If we continue to drag our feet, then we really don't know when it will be built. If everything goes smoothly, it will only be completed in December 2017. The next CE by that time would have been elected. So some members ask for speeding up the project. That's something that should be considered. As for making use of the existing site, whether we should make full use of the site, I think many have said it before. Now, the Sao Ming Road public housing project is built in tandem with this. So we don't need to spend time on going in reinventing the wheel, so to speak. Now, the project is in response to the demand of the Kwun Tong District Council and the residents in that district. Apart from Kowloon East in Kwun Tong and in Sao Mau Ping, where there is such a demand, in fact, many districts have similar demand. I hope there is a policy what is the standard for building community halls? Is it because there's pressure from the district council, there are people protesting, and then you provide a hall? In fact, such a demand is present in many districts. What are the criteria for the provision of community halls? Now, we are talking about Kowloon East, but there are many public housing estates in Kowloon West, and they also have community halls, and they also have demand for community halls. I hope the administration can provide us the criteria for providing community hall. Now, Mr. Prescott, please be brief and precise.
We work according to the Hong Kong Planning Standards and Guidelines, and they set out the proportion of facilities against the population within any particular district. In terms of the timing, as we've already explained, this is already a pretty fast program, particularly as there has to be a demolition before we can even start the process. In terms of looking at other districts, while the Housing Department and the Housing Authority is always prepared to work as an agent for the various government departments, as we are in this case, obviously our priority is to provide public housing and the facilities that must go in the context of a comprehensive development. Where we can add value, as we're doing here, we're quite happy to do that, and we'll continue to do that, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Allen Leung. Chairman, I want to ask this question. If we look at the last page, and that is, it will be built in the area shaded purple, and next to it is a public housing development. Is it the best way of making full use of the site? Has it make full use of the plot ratio? If the proposed community hall is incorporated into the public housing development, would that be even better? I don't know whether the Housing Authority has considered this. Now, the site is very close to Sao Mau Ping Estate. In fact, McDonald's is on the other side of the street. Now, when you conduct the works, is there any way to reduce the nuisance? Who has answered the question? Mr. Prescott or Ms. Fong? Ms. Fong, please. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for the question. Now, in planning for the proposed community hall and the public housing development and the lift tower, we have considered the whole layout and configuration. The two buildings are abutting each other. This is a small site, not a big one. And we need to provide ingress, egress, pedestrian flow, ventilation, so on and so forth, with make full use of the development potential. We will try our best to minimize the adverse impacts on the housing estate, including environmental issues and safety issues. Concerning the second reply, have you talked to the residents of Sao Mau Ping and explained to them the demolition and the construction and the related arrangements to minimize nuisance? Yes, please. We will continue to talk to the district council and the resident groups so that they can be rest assured. Mr. Leung Kwok-hing. Now, they are to demolish the old community hall in tandem with the Sao Ming Road public housing development. Is it within a part of the development of the Sao Ming Road public housing development? Is it the only question? Yes or no? It's about the boundary. Is it within the same boundary? Now, have you asked the advice of the housing, the Health and Labor, the Labor and Welfare Bureau? Has the Labour and Welfare Bureau asked for any space? Now, the Transport and Housing Bureau doesn't look after welfare services. So what advice has the Health and Welfare and Labour Bureau give you?
When we look at these sites, we of course do speak to all the relevant bureaus and departments, Social Welfare Department, Labour and Welfare Bureau, and indeed we continue to work with them in terms of re-provision
certainly.
to make sure that those facilities that have to be moved out can be...
咁你有冇問過先得㗎？你問
Have you ever asked them? Asking the district council is no use. Now, you have the site because this is the public housing development project at Sao Ming Road. It is within the boundary. But what about the Labour and Welfare Bureau? It is responsible for planning the welfare services. Well, I really don't think that you have provided adequate space for that welfare services. If the Bureau doesn't come, then we really don't get an answer. I think it's unreasonable for the Labour and Welfare Bureau, not adequate. And only the Bureau, the LWB, knows the need. It's not just 86,000 or 80,000 people. You just consider it as part of the housing development, but that is not adequate. Do you need any reply? Well, I think we should get somebody from the LWB to answer the question. Mr. Prescott, can you address the question raised by Mr. Leung?
Just say, we have actually consulted them. They have had input to this, and we will continue to work with them on the relocation of these existing...
But they are the regime to provide the services, not you.
They fund them.
You are just a builder, or... Come on.
But the solution...
阿梁議員，你唔好
Mr. Leung, please do not conduct any direct dialogue with him. Please do not interrupt him. Let him finish the question first. I now give the floor to Mr. Prescott so that you can give a complete answer.
Say, our responsibility is to make sure those services do continue to operate, and that's what we will be doing in
But who set up the
consultation
criteria?
with Social Welfare Department.
阿梁議員，你唔好插嘴。
Mr. Leung, please don't interrupt. Let him finish.
I think I can say anything more, Mr. Chairman.
我就嚟病死啊！
好，可以。
Okay, thank you. Mr. Leung Yu-chung. Chairman, as said by some other members in other districts when they build a community hall, if at all possible, usually other uses are incorporated. Say, for example, an indoor games hall or other facilities. In the community, we need a lot of institutions to provide residential care. I don't know the plot ratio, but if a few stories can be added to the community hall and some residential institutions can be housed and meet the needs of the district. But it is only just an ordinary community hall and no other thing else. Now we are going to spend more than $100 million on that. It is a site of considerable size. If you just build a standalone community hall, it will be a waste of resources. Can we add more community facilities there? You say you have asked other government departments. I don't believe that other departments don't need space. If you are just providing a community hall, they can really do nothing about it. Say in Kwok-hing, in an old housing estate, we did that before. You said you add a playground. We didn't allow you to build new houses. We asked you to build a playground together with community hall. So can you go back and talk to them and find out the possibilities? Say build a bigger building and then accommodate the residential institutions, in particular RCHEs. Mr. Prescott, is it possible to build more stories so as to accommodate more social services as suggested by Mr. Leung?
What we've, as I explained earlier, tried to do is to maximize the use of the site. Basically, the spread now is between public rental housing units, 300 odd, and the community centre. That more or less uses up the capacity of the site. In addition to which, we've managed to squeeze in this lift tower to link this site into the other sites. There really isn't much capacity on the site to go for anything else beyond what we're proposing. And that's why, again, as I said earlier, we're looking elsewhere within our estates and within other facilities to re-provision those facilities that will have to be moved out of this site. Because we accept that those services are valuable and needed, and we obviously, our tenants benefit from those services. So it's in our best interest to make sure that they are re-provisioned within a reasonable location within the same area. So that's the way we've approached it. I'm afraid I can't commit to any more use of the site.
主席，過去經驗都係咁樣話唔得嘅。
Our previous experience told us that originally they said no, but after they thought about it, they might be able to come up with more space. Mr. Leung, you are not the first one who has asked this question. I've already asked Mr. Prescott to go back and think about it, study about it, see and do their best to add more floor space for social services. And then you give us a reply. Go back and think about it and then give us a reply. We have 2 more members who want to ask for the second round, and we still have 2 more items on the agenda, so only 2 minutes each. Mr. Wu Chi-wai and then Dr. Fernando Cheung, and I'll draw a line there. Wu Chi-wai, 2 minutes. Questions and answers. Chairman, you are correct in pointing that out, and I hope that the Housing Department will consider this. Can you tell us the GFA of the site? Is it, have you made full use of the GFA or the plot ratio? I want to know the constraint. How big is the site? Have you made full use of the plot ratio? How big is it? What is the plot ratio? What is the total GFA? And what about the allocation? Who is answering the question? Ms. Fong. We have made full use of the plot ratio. As for the detailed numbers, I can give them after the meeting. We have made full use of the plot ratio. We've made full use of the development potential.
Do you have the figures of the plot ratio now? No, those will be provided to you after the meeting. Dr. Fernando Cheung. Well, for the existing community center, it's 6-story high, and for the future community hall, there will only be 2 stories. Well, the future one will be a hall. This one is a community center. So the future one will be 2 stories, and now there are 6 stories, and 4 NGOs are providing services inside now. And you demolish building, you kick the NGOs out, you move the services elsewhere, and you cannot tell me what is going to happen to them. And for the new community hall, it will just comprise 2 stories, and you are just enlarging the multi-purpose hall, but no service will be provided. But there is a serious shortage of welfare services. Now, for daycare center in Kwun, Tong, now those people waiting there started their application in March 2010. So they have been waiting for 3 years. And for those with serious mental disability, they started waiting in June 1999. It was the last century. And now you are enlarging the multi-purpose hall so that celebrations can be held inside. But those people are waiting. So can they tell me why 6 stories are reduced to 2 stories? Okay, simple question.
There is a development gain here, but it's for public rental housing. The services that currently are provided will be re-provisioned somewhere else, and we'll come back and give you the details when that's available. As for the general provision of social welfare services, I'm afraid I'm not in a position to comment on that. That's something Labour and Welfare Bureau will have to comment on.
咁我想問究竟
So I would like to ask the SWD or the LWB, during this redevelopment, have they ever said that they need more space? Who's going to answer this question?
We've been talking to them specifically on this site. If they're talking about additional space, they would have to speak to Development Bureau to secure the land for that sort of development.
即係佢冇啊？
So that means no. Mr. Prescott, can you liaise with the LWB and ask them to give us an answer in writing and what kind of facilities are needed in this area, etc. Okay, let us stop here. However, we need the administration to follow up on two things. First, for those NGOs that are operating in the existing community center, what will the future arrangement be like? Where will they be relocated to? And will these services continue? So you have to give us an answer in writing. And second, plot ratio. Have you made full use of the plot ratio? We need the detailed figures. Please give them to us. And also, members have repeatedly asked you to find out if it's possible to increase the floor area so that more social welfare services can be provided. So please give us those answers in writing. Mr. Leung, I've already said this before you entered the conference room because you are not sitting here all the time. So we'll wrap up the discussion of this item here. I have already concluded. So I just want to ensure that will they be submitting the application to the PWSC in November? I think we just saw the timetable. And also I've summarized the salient points, and they have to provide us answers in writing before they can submit to the PWSC. Mr. Chen Kang Lam says that at the PWSC meeting, they would just look at the engineering aspects, and we should talk about policies here at the panel. Now, for this project, I think the paper is not well prepared. So where will the NGOs be relocated? They have not made that arrangement, and they're telling us that they will start the works in 1 year's time. So no matter whether it's the HD or the HAD, they should be better prepared before they come to us. And if there is no new information and they submit this application to the PWSC, and Mr. Chen Kam-lam said that, it's passed by the panel, so what should we do? Yes, I heard you. So that's why I'm asking the administration to give us those information that we asked for, and they have to reply to us in writing. And then we will discuss whether we will support this project at another meeting, okay? Because we still need them to answer those questions. Well, but I noticed that you support this project in principle. However, you are not too sure about the details. So I hope, Mr. Prescott, I'm sure you have heard us, so please provide us with those information, and then we will arrange for another meeting to decide whether we will endorse this project, okay? So we're not going to vote now. Okay, let us move to the next agenda item. So I hope the administration will prepare the relevant information for us. Okay, next item. Improving the living environment of Po Tin Estates and related issues. The paper number is CP bracket 1115-3-1213 bracket 04. This is a paper provided to us by the administration. I would like to welcome the government officials again. First, I would like to ask the government officials to take us through this paper. Well, please take your seats first. Other than Mr. Prescott, we have Mr. Albert Lee, Deputy Director of Housing Department, Mr. Chen Siu-tak, Assistant Director of Housing Department, Mr. Lee Yang-to, Chief Manager, Management Housing Department, Jun and Yun Long. Mr. Prescott,
members, on the improvement measures undertaken by the Housing Authority on the living environment at Po Tin Estate. I think it's important to understand the context. Po Tin Estate is located in Tuen Mun Area 29 and has 8,736 flats. It was completed in the year 2000 as interim housing. It was specifically designed for that purpose. However, due to the decline in demand for interim housing since 2004, the then vacant and any subsequently recovered units in Po Tin Estate have gradually been converted into regular public rental housing units for allocation. Despite the fact that the estate was originally designed as interim housing, the provisions and facilities were generally built to a standard comparable to other public rental estates, with the exception that bathrooms are relatively small. Having regard to the relatively small size of the bathrooms, the Housing Authority has provided various incentives to public rental housing applicants choosing to take up units in Po Tin Estate. These include fixing the rent at the licence fee level of interim housing, which is slightly below regular public rental housing levels, granting 1 month rent-free period in addition to the normal 14 days rent-free period for new contracts, and as an added concession, an offer of housing in Po Tin Estate does not count towards the usual 3-offer limit for applicants. We've also offered enhancement works since 2006, and these include relocating the wash basin from the toilet entrance to the inside corner by using a new type of corner basin, as well as repositioning the shower. Beyond this, for tenants who have genuine difficulties in using the small bathrooms, we will, of course, give special consideration to those tenants and will arrange transfers to other public rental housing flats. Perhaps to give you a better feeling for the context, I'd like to invite the Assistant Director of Housing to brief members on the environment and improvement works. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
好啊，邊一位係陳生？
Yes, Mr. Chan. Let me tell you about the background of Po Tin Estate. It's in Kwun area 29. There are 9 blocks there with 8,736 units, and originally it's designed as an interim housing estate. As for its facilities, they are similar to those of a public housing estates. There is a park there, and there are also ball courts, children's playgrounds, elder centers, and also youth centers, kindergartens, markets, shopping halls, public transport interchange, and also there are NGOs there providing services. For example, they would visit the elders living in the estates. Now, in order to maintain a good living condition, the maintenance levels of Po Tin Estate is similar to those of other PRH. We have completely repainted the estate. We have improved the barrier-free accesses. We have also beautified the environment. For example, we have added benches, and we have also installed air conditioners, etc. And also the security system has been upgraded. For example, gates is installed at the main entrance, and also there is a coded lock as well as intercom system. Because there has been a decreasing demand for interim housing, we want to make full use of our housing resources. So after recovering some units in Po Tin Estate, we have upgraded them, and then we allocate them to applicants. Well, all the facilities are there, for example, kitchens, wash basins, metal case, etc. Well, in fact, the toilet is a bit smaller, but there is gas supply and also communal aerial broadcasting distribution system, and as well, and also cooking bench. Now, because the toilet is a bit small, so we are providing 3 incentive measures. The rents of the units are fixed at the level of the license fee of interim housing, which is equivalent to 95% of the district best rent for PLH units, and also there is an additional 1 month rent-free period. And if the applicants will still be given a maximum of 3 other allocation offers, even if the applicants eventually reject the allocation offer of PLH units in Po Tin Estate. We have provided these 3 incentive measures, but we still want to make improvements to the bathroom. So we have studied the viability of unit layout refiguration or combining 2 units to enlarge the bathroom. However, given the constraints of the building structure and nuisances that might be caused, the reconfiguration or enlargement works are considered to be impracticable. Nonetheless, to address tenants' aspiration for a more spacious bathroom, HA provides tenants with enhancement measures for free since 2006. These include relocating wash basin from the bathroom entrance to the inside corner by using a new type of corner basin and repositioning the shower so that there is more space for taking shower. As at April 2013, HA has already carried out the above modification works in around 5,400 units. So these are photos taken before and after the improvement measure. Well, if tenants have difficulties using these units, they can arrange for transfer, and if new members are added to their households, they can also make application under the overcrowded household arrangements. Thank you. Members can ask questions now. 3 minutes for each member. Mr. Michael Tan, Fernando, Chairman Ming, Liang Yiu-chung, Kwok-hing. Anyone else? 3 minutes, including answers. Mr. Michael Tan, Chairman, from 2000 onwards, yes, I understand that they have been doing something, and now 6,800 people are living in this terrible situation, and we see this tiny bathroom there. And even you have 5 persons living in there, the washroom is still of the same size. It's less than 1 square meter. What is meant by less than 1 square meter? Now please look at this gentleman here. Well, he cannot enter the bathroom, so he has to take away the wash basin. Now he has to wash his face and brush his teeth in the kitchen. Now this is me. I visited there. I couldn't squat, so I could not wash my face there. And outside the bathroom is like this. Now this is the huge space you have in the unit. This is the toilet. This is the wall outside the toilet. I don't know what this space is used for, and I am told that the wall cannot be removed. So what's the result? Some tenants, after moving in, they have never washed their back. They don't know what color is their back of. And when they drop a soap in the bathroom, they cannot squat down to pick up the soap. They have to kick the soap out of the bathroom and then come out to pick it up. And of course, many of them cannot wash their faces. Well, the government says that there are a lot of constraints, so they cannot change the configuration. Well, you're saying that nuisance may be brought to the existing tenants. We have over 50 such tenants here today. They told us that they have found contractors to modify the units, but they are not allowed to do so, and it will just take them several days to do the modification, but they are not permitted to do so. And my question is very simple. We have to resolve this problem sooner or later. If this doesn't happen today, it will happen in a few years' time. I think the configuration should be changed immediately. Well, I'm sure the tenants can move out for 8 to 10 days and wait for your reconfiguration work.
It's not quite as simple as the Honourable Member presents it. If you change a wet area and expand it, you have to make sure that the area is watertight. If you don't, you then end up with multiple problems, which we always hear in this chamber, of spalling, of water dripping down from upstairs, etc. It's not as easy as it seems, and we find that when you bring in individual contractors, they don't actually care about the water security. They just do the work, and then we end up having to go back in and solve the problem which they've caused. So I'm afraid it really is not as easy as that. We would like to be able to do it, but unfortunately, from a technical point of view, it's just not feasible.
Why can't the waterproofing be extended? I've asked contractors, they say it could be done.
It could be done, but you then
It's
lose
costly.
the space. No, it's not just a cost issue. You lose the space, and I have 9,000 units there. If I was to lose half of that...
Space.
The point is the way that these things were built. As you know, we do prefabricated bathrooms, kitchens, and what have you. They're actually physically built off-site as a unit, and it's very, very difficult to then change the design to move the walls and what have you. It's just the way.
So there's absolutely no solution.
Almost no solution.
It's a dead case.
Yes.
Would you like to go visit it?
I have visited it.
田議員
I have
你
seen
排
it
第二
myself.
輪咯。
Mr. Tian, you need to wait for the second round. You have overrun. Dr. Fernando Cheung. Thank you, Chairman. This is a long-standing problem, and I visited the tenants. I look at the toilet. I could only say that it is inhumane. The administration said it was only smaller, but it is. They said that it's smaller. But I hope that Mr. Prescott can try it out, take a bath there to see how it is functional.
Myself, and I've seen these toilets for myself. I'm not disagreeing with you. They're not a full-size toilet. They're not the standard that we normally provide in public rental housing. I have no dispute with you. The issue is, unfortunately, it's physically impossible for us to change them without making enormous changes to the structure of the building, which I just can't do.
Chairman. Now the whole Polton estate has become units for public housing estate. In fact, it is a blemish of the housing, public housing in Hong Kong. If we put it on the internet and tell the world that these are the facilities provided to our residents in the public housing estate by the government, you make Hong Kong a laughing stock. 60% of the residents make use of this narrow and small and cramped toilet and hurt themselves. 60% of them. If Mr. Michael Tian couldn't wash his face or wash his hair, how could the elderly do that? How could the pregnant women do that? Yeah, you say it is small but functional bathroom. I think that's an insult to Hong Kong. I think the department better withdraw these words. If you say it is technically feasible, demolish them. It's really inhumane. It's not suitable for human accommodation. There is a solution. We've asked architects to look at that, and they have proposals. I hope you have to. You really have to deal with it seriously. It has been dragged on for many years. It's not just the building. It's about management. It's about security as well. Please deal with it seriously. Mr. Prescott.
Of course, we recognise this, and that's one of the reasons why we give people an extra choice not to move in the first place. Once they've seen the place, they can reject it and not be penalised against their three choices.
主席，仲有一個問題咧，就係佢唔使答啦，佢
Well, he doesn't need to continue with the answer. Some have asked that they need to sign a document. They cannot ask for transfer because of the toilet within 3 years. Is there such a thing?
If their family circumstance changes, we will obviously take steps to deal with that, and we do that from time to time. I think that the point I was trying to make here is when we have such enormous pressure on us to provide decent, safe accommodation for people who are living in much, much worse conditions, I would like to be able to knock it down and start again, but I just can't. I have to make use of the facilities I have. Unfortunately, I'm stuck with a situation that was built over 10 years ago, and I have to make the best use of it. The best solution, to my mind, would be to convert them back into interim housing and make them sort of a way step on the way to public rental housing. And perhaps that's the solution. We convert them all back into interim housing. But at the moment, people are living there. I have to respect them, and we'll try to do what we can. We'll move, for example, the photograph that the other honourable member showed. where the basin is at the entrance to the bathroom. We move those away. That gives people a bit more room to squat down, pick up whatever they need to do. We will try, but I have to say I'm actually constrained as to what is possible. And until I can knock them down and build them again, I'm stuck with them.
白治古先生，我想你呢就澄清一個事實。
Mr. Prescott, I hope you can clarify one fact, and that is the point made by Mr. Cheung. Now, the residents have to sign an undertaking, a sort of undertaking, to that effect. Within 3 years, they cannot be transferred because of the bathroom. Is it the case? Yes or no?
In fact, this is a standard thing in all estates, because obviously we want people to understand that they're moving in out of their choice. We don't want them to use this as a shortcut into other estates, and we do the same with people that take EFOS flats and what have you. It's a standard across all of our public housing estates. It's not specifically in this location.
I
noticed that Mr. Michael Tien would like to show some evidence. Now, it is said that I understand that the size of Potin estate, the bathroom of the toilet unit of the Potin estate is small, and I will not move out, so on and so forth. Now, can you give us a copy of that? Now, they say that all housing estates are done in that way. It's a standard provision. But I have queries about that. I'm following it up for you, Ms. McMakin. Now, there are residents in Potin Estate. Now, they are regarded as public housing estate residents. But even if it is an interim housing unit, the facility cannot be so bad. The toilet is even worse than the toilet of a subdivided unit. Should the government provide such a unit which is worse than a subdivided unit for people to live in? Whether it is interim housing or public housing, the government has to provide a decent and safe unit. It is neither decent nor safe. People hurt themselves in the toilet. How can you call it safe? And that's the responsibility of the government. Now, your response is that if you are willing to live in, then I charge you a lower rent. I give you a 1 month rent-free period, additional 1 month rent-free period. You're giving a wrong message to the community. If you are poor, if you don't want to pay more, then you have to bear with these units. Are you sending this message to the people? If you are unable to pay a higher rent, you need to suffer. Is it government policy that you build subdivided flats, subdivided units for the PRH tenants? If there are so many constraints, knock it down and build something else. Why you force people to suffer? They suffer discrimination. They pay less rent, but in fact they suffer discrimination. And therefore they have to bear with that because they have no money to pay rent.
We're saying at all. And in fact, I think that's a little bit disingenuous. The reality is we're saying we recognize these are not the same as normal public rental housing units. We need to reflect that in the price. That's all we're saying. And we're going beyond that. We're actually saying to people, look, if you would rather have a normal public rental housing unit, fine, say no to this and we'll still give you 3 offers. Because we accept that there are, as I've said in response to the earlier questions, these have a problem in the size of the bathrooms. I'm not disputing that fact. But the chance of me being able to redevelop this estate, frankly at this stage, is very, very slim. I have to give priority to other estates which are probably in worse condition, physically worse condition. And that's where my priorities lie. I mean, I'm afraid, at the end of the day, it is all about priorities. But we want to try to make the situation as positive as it can be. And in doing so, we have to give these concessions. And that's all we're saying.
There are 2 questions. Is there any chance to change the facilities? If not, then tear them down and build new ones.
And we're working And we have looked at a more substantial adjustments to the size of the bathrooms, but I'm advised that that is not possible in the current situation in that estate. Accordingly, yes, I would like to tear them down, but I would lose 9,000 units at a time when I've got 115,000 people waiting. I can't do it. It's economics, I'm afraid.
Mr. Liang Yiu-chung. Yes, I think people living in interim housing are human beings as well. Because of divorce, because of natural calamities, they cannot get public housing. They can only live in interim housing. They are not subhuman. They should not be placed in substandard flats. The interim housing units in Shek Lei are similar. Originally, they were standard units, but they have become substandard because they are turned into interim housing units. I think you need to improve the conditions. People can live there for a limited period of time, and then they have to be asked to go away. But you shouldn't penalize them by forcing them to live in substandard conditions. Now, we are told by Mr. Prescott that there can be no more improvement. I think you need to reconsider this, though you say you will not. We strongly urge you, or we demand that you demolish them. Demolish one block, build one block, demolish another block, build another block, so as to let people live in standard units. If you say you don't demolish them, then they will be there, maybe for 50 years. So people will have to suffer for a few more decades. You don't improve the bathroom. That's not reasonable. Now, the so-called undertaking is also used in other housing estates, but I don't think that's true. Now, because the housing estate is specific, or rather, because the housing estate is special, then you have special arrangements, ask people to sign an undertaking. In fact, people want to live there, or rather, people want to be housed, and if they want to be housed, they have to sign the undertaking. That's unfair. That's really unfair.
I think the honourable member is right. This particular undertaking relates specifically to those bathrooms. The other ones I'm talking about are general undertakings relating to acceptance of the housing unit. I apologise to both honourable members. I was inaccurate in the way I presented it. But let me go back as well.
Why do you have to do this?
We want people to understand that they're taking it on with those constraints.
Then you are forcing this on people.
It's a reality. If we don't, then we end up with a situation they'll say, well, I didn't know, which is not fair to everybody else. So I think the reality here is that we have to.
Well, Chairman, I live in Potin Estate. I've been living there for 5 years, and for those 5 years, I could not have squatted down in the toilet. I just want to make a fair remark. Well, this is a meeting of the Legislative Council. Let us continue. Mr. Kwok-hing. Over this tenant, I'm sure he really cannot bear it anymore. Well, Mr. Prescott, if you live here, maybe you have to ask the Department of Health to help you. They have to chop you up into 2 pieces before you can move into the washroom. So this shows something, that is, you discriminated against people who lived in interim housing. So it's just like in some fast food shops, the seat is so high that your feet cannot reach the floor. Mr. Prescott, I heard what you said. You say that there are many people waiting to be housed in PLH. So for those that have been waiting for a long time, they may really be lured into moving into this estate. But the living condition is so poor. Well, we have been asking you to make improvement repeatedly, and if you cannot make improvements, maybe you should consider demolishing the estate. Now, 5,400 units have been renovated. That's over 50%. And if you renovate over 60%, then maybe you have a stronger excuse. Now, please look at this seriously. We will give you the money. Well, for waterproof structure is not that difficult. I have been in the construction industry as well. I know how it can be done. And also, you can combine 2 units into 1 unit. Well, when I was a kid, I remember the government did that. That is combining 2 smaller units for a bigger family. So you have to consider all this. Otherwise, you should stop doing the improvement works. That is for the remaining 38%. And you should stop allocating the units to people. Because this is a mistake. You should not continue with this mistake. Now, what if somebody falls in the bathroom and dies afterwards? And what if something serious happened to a pregnant woman living there? So please take this very seriously. In particular, Mr. Michael Chen asked you some very serious questions. You really have to answer them. Please let Mr. Prescott.
I'm happy to look at a redevelopment, demolish it and clear it. If that's what members are asking me for, I can do that. But, obviously the challenge I have is that I would have to find housing for all of those people that are living there. And it would take a long time.
How about the Valley Road estate? How come you are building luxury flats there? How many PLH units can be built there? I lived there when I was a kid. Value estate. I mean the site's there. You are selling it. Okay, your time is up. Mr. Frederick Fong. Well, this interim housing estate was so poorly built because it hoped that the people would not live there for a long time, in particular when they are offered PLH. But now it's different. Now it's part of the waiting list, and we are talking about 6,820 units. So the whole thing has changed. And you talk about the incentive measures, 1, 2, 3. Are they reasonable measures? 95% of the district best rents for PLH units. We are talking about the best PLH units. And this interim housing estate has been built for 10 years or 20 years. So now you set it at 95% and you think it's a huge bonus, and you're talking about an additional 1 month rent-free period. It's a one-off thing, but these people have to live there for a long time or even for their whole life. But this is just a one-off incentive. And so say that the third point is that this is not included in the 3 allocation offers. Now, do you know that if you do not accept the offer now, you have to wait for another 12 months before you get another offer? So people may be forced to accept this offer. Well, if we look at the present standards, this interim housing units are totally unacceptable. Well, this was built 20 years ago, and these are totally substandard. So you have to enlarge the bathroom, otherwise you should redevelop the whole estate. Mr. Prescott?
As I said, we accept that the bathrooms are not up to standard. And for that reason, we do give a number of concessions. Let me just clarify this. 95% is of the rent within that particular district, not across the whole of the territory. So it is local rent, not the territory as a whole. I think that's an important point. In terms of the particular circumstances of individuals, as I've said before, my colleagues at the estate level will work with the tenants, with the EMAC, to make sure that particular problems are dealt with. And we're particularly careful to ensure that people that have serious problems are addressed first and foremost. But let me say, it is very difficult for me, honestly, to tear down a building that's less than 20 years old when I've got buildings that are 40 or 50 years old that really need to be redeveloped. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Pak Tin's 40 years old. That is taking time. The other reality, and it's not necessarily directly relevant, but it's important to understand, redevelopment is not a quick process. It takes 10 or 15 years. So even if I was to decide within the next few months to go for redevelopment, it doesn't happen very quickly because I have to find decanting accommodation in that area. So it's not an easy solution to this problem.
Okay. That's it for the first round. Second round, Mr. Michael Tan and Dr. Fernando Cheung, Mr. Patrick Fung. I'll draw a line here. These 3 members. 3 minutes each. Because we still have another item to discuss. That's about overcrowding in PLH. I'll draw a line here. Mr. Michael Tan, 3 minutes. Chairman, I have been a legislator for quite a while. Well, I've never seen such an issue that's like this. Now, it looks complicated, but actually it's a very simple issue. Well, I think we legislators have reached a consensus on this, and now they just have one reason for not doing anything. That is about waterproof structure. And it's for that single reason that you cannot move the wall. Well, you just move the wall by 8 inches or 12 inches and that's it. But they say they cannot do it. It's because it's not waterproof. So if you cannot move the wall, how about tearing down the whole building? I think we have to focus on the first question now. We do not have any statistics. Now, you are saying that if you move the wall by 8 inches or 12 inches, it's not possible because it will not be waterproof. So can you give me a consultancy report on this? And I will also find experts to check on this. Now, is this really true? Or the other engineers will think that this is actually viable. That is, you can move the wall by 8 inches or 12 inches. But because now they're just giving us one reason. It's not about nuisance. It's not about any other things. It's about waterproof structure. And just now I try to move a motion. Well, yes, for your motion, I have asked our colleagues to photocopy it and it's distributed to members. After the second round of questions is asked, we will look at your motion. Well, I would ask Mr. Pascoe to answer your question first. That is about the waterproof issue. Whether they can conduct a viability study. Mr. Pascoe?
As I said, we have actually done some work to look at the viability of these suggested changes. And it's not just about waterproofing, but waterproofing is definitely one of the problems that we get very, very many complaints about. It's about a number of different issues: drainage, waterproofing, the fact that we would have to clear out the flats and to carry out the work because it couldn't be done overnight, and because physically the buildings are not designed for large bathrooms. Unfortunately, the way the supporting structure is set up in these buildings is constraining what we can do. We have looked at this. I'm happy to look at it again. But honestly, I would be misleading members if I was to suggest that we come up with a solution.
Well, just now he said that it's just because of waterproof problem, and now they're telling us that nuisance will be brought to the tenants. But the tenants who are here today told me that they are willing to move out so that they can do the reconfiguration. They do not want to bear this for another 10 years or 20 years. Okay, after voting on your motion, we will revisit this. Dr. Fernando Cheung? I have also drafted a motion. It's similar to Mr. Tan's and Mr. Leung's motions. Well, can you read it out? My motion is like this. We have looked at Put-in Estate. We think that the facilities are not up to standard. In particular, the washroom is very small and it's very difficult for the tenants to live there. The design is inhumane and it may be very risky for them to live there. And Also, the administration asked the prospective tenants to sign an agreement before they moved in. We regret that the tenants are asked to sign such an agreement. We think that the bathroom design of the Putin estate should be improved immediately. If that is not possible, the whole estate should be redeveloped, and the tenants should be rehoused in situ, and the HD should not continue to ask the prospective tenants to sign the agreement. So this is about what they are doing now. I wonder if this already covers Mr. Tan's and Mr. Leung's motions. Well, please give it to me. I will have it photocopied and members can decide later. Do you want the HD to answer your questions? The HD has known this for a long time. And now they are still saying that they have this incentive measures, 1 month rent-free period, etc., to resolve the problem. So, and after signing this agreement, the tenants would feel that even though they have such a need, for example, the wife gets pregnant and they really cannot use such a tiny bathroom, and then they are not entitled to do anything. They say that I understand that I cannot ask for a transfer because of this reason. So this is misleading. Now the HD says that if you have a special need, I will take your need into consideration, but you have asked people to sign this agreement. And then many tenants think that they have to stay in the unit. They cannot ask for a transfer, in particular for the new arrivals. They do not know. So I think you should stop this approach immediately. I would like to ask the Permanent Secretary, will you stop this kind of practice?
Let me make a couple of points. First, obviously, we'll respect the motion, whichever one is voted on, but I must make the point very clear. In situ redevelopment is the most complex form of redevelopment. You have to move people out, then knock down a building and find them somewhere to live. You can't just do it in situ if you don't have space. So redevelopment implies these people will have to move, and we need to find accommodation for them somewhere else. That's something that we'll look at. Secondly, as I've said before, even if someone signs the undertaking on day 1 and on day 3 they find that their circumstances have changed, they can always come to us and we'll always look at their circumstances for redevelopment. What we're trying to make clear is that people understand the context in which they're moving in to these flats, which we accept as substandard. But the overriding principle for my colleagues in Housing Department is if there is a special need, that special need will be dealt with as a priority. So that assurance I want to give here and now in public. If they have a circumstance that warrants special treatment, it doesn't matter if it's 1 day or 3 years after the event, we will deal with that. I think that is important.
主席，既然如果係簽咗之後1日、2日、3，
So after signing the undertaking, if after 3 days' time they can change, then why do you ask them to sign the undertaking? Time's up.
Mr. KK Fong, I said that it was used for interim housing. When people moved in, they waited for PRH. Say in Kwun, people waited for 2 years, and in the urban area 5 years. So the maximum was 5 years. But it is no longer interim. It is for life. If you don't have any substantial change, in particular in terms of means, then you're stuck there for your whole life. You stick there for your whole life. So do you think that's suitable? You ask people to live there with this small bathroom. Is it right for? Is it suitable? If suitable, then why other new public housing estates are not like that? They are living there permanently. Now I only heard that only the loading wall cannot be removed. Other walls can be removed. As for the other walls, I think it's a matter of cost. It's not a matter of whether it can be done or cannot be done. If it is worth doing, so do it. If it is not a loading wall, then you can do it. You can ask any engineer. Mr. Prescott.
I absolutely agree that our current standards are far superior to this. I have to say, if we were being asked to build interim housing today, we would certainly not do it this way. But I'm stuck with it. I have what is in front of me, and I have to deal with that. If we can, we will do whatever is possible. And I've already given an undertaking that we'll have another look at what might be possible on the bathrooms. But I'm not optimistic, Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to mislead members into suggesting that that's an easy problem. I'm not optimistic.
Mr. Prescott, can you clarify the point asked by Mr. Fong, whether it is a loading wall and whether the wall can be relocated?
In response to one of the other questions, there are a number of issues. One is the structural integrity of the building. Another is the need to ensure the waterproofing. A third is the drainage issues. There's a number of different issues that have all been brought up as constraints to our ability to do this significant, very significant redoing.
Still have half a second left. Now, apart from the loading wall, others can be resolved, including waterproofing, drainage. They can all be worked on and improved upon. The question is about cost, whether it's $1 or $100. It's not impossible. The question is whether you have the will to do it or not. Your time is up. Any response from Mr. Prescott?
As I say, we'll have a look at it.
Members, now there are two members' motions in front of you, and they will be put to the vote. We are not going to discuss the motions. Now, concerning Po Tin Estate, if I may suggest that this panel will conduct a site visit with the department. And then I will ask the department to conduct a feasibility study. We need to be realistic. As you have asked, you asked the department to provide the information. They say that they looked into that. They say it was not feasible. Therefore, we asked them to conduct a feasibility study. And the department can get consultants or engineers to do the analysis for us. And then the consultancy should include reconfiguring the toilet, improving the toilet. If that cannot be done, what will be the possibility of redevelopment, and how should redevelopment be conducted? I think we can conduct a site visit, and then we have a special meeting to discuss the Po Tin Estate issue. Please keep quiet in the public gallery. Do we still need an inspection? It's a big mistake. Well, that's my decision. I will put Mr. Cheung's motion to the vote. And Mr. Tian, and also Mr. Tian has a motion seconded by Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. The panel asked the Housing Authority to provide the options for expanding the toilet. If the bathrooms cannot be expanded, then the buildings should be demolished. I want to expand the toilet, not to improve the toilet. Now, this paper says improve. Okay, Mr. Tian, we've finished the discussion. We understand your point. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Can we wait? Can we vote for three motions? Can we? Are the two motions voted on separately? Yes, they are voted on separately. First, Mr. Michael Tin's motion, seconded by Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Those in favor, please raise their hands. 9 in favor. So there is no objection, no abstention. Okay, this motion is carried. The second motion by Dr. Fernando Cheung, you already read it out. We don't need to repeat it. Please move your motion, Mr. Cheung. I don't need to read the motion. Yes, I move the motion under my name. Those in favor of Mr. Cheung's motion, please raise your hands. 7. Yes, thank you. Those against? Any abstention, please? 1 abstention. 2 abstentions. 7 for, 2 abstentions. Motion's carried. So we draw a line here. We conclude our discussion of the item. Item 3 now. Or no, apologies. The sixth item. Overcrowding relief in public rental housing estates. Paper CB 1153/1213 bracket 05, Administration's paper on overcrowding relief in public rental housing estates. Second paper CB 1153/1213 bracket 06, background brief on overcrowding relief in public rental housing estate prepared by the Legislative Secretariat. The third paper, CB 1153/1213, bracket 07, referral by the Public Complaints Office arising from the meeting between duty roster members and Tong People's Livelihood Concern Group on the 19th of April 2013. May I welcome Mr. Pescott and also Mr. Tony Liu, Assistant Director of Housing Department, and Mr. Chiu Kin Chi, Assistant Director of Housing Department. So, Mr. Pescott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to brief members on the measures to relieve overcrowding in public rental housing estates. Currently, households with a living density below 5.5 square metres per person internal floor area are considered as overcrowded. In 2001, we launched the territory-wide Overcrowding Relief Transfer (TWOR) exercise. These are now arranged once or twice per year to offer relief to overcrowded households. In 2005, we enhanced our transfer arrangements and introduced a Living Space Improvement Transfer Scheme, LSITS. And these are arranged once a year for households living in flats with an average internal floor area of less than 7 square metres per person. In addition to these schemes, for overcrowded household with justified social or medical grounds, as recommended by Social Welfare Department or the Hospital Authority, we'll take action to arrange special transfers without the need to wait for the above exercises and whenever suitable resources are available. As a result of these proactive schemes, the number of overcrowded households has fallen from something like 3.1% of all public rental households in 2001 to about 0.45% of all public rental households as at the end of March of this year. This shows that the action so far has been effective in addressing the worst overcrowding situation, and we will continue to arrange TWOR and LSITS exercises every year. Now, I'm aware of suggestions that the Housing Authority review or relax the threshold for overcrowded households. However, relaxing the threshold will require additional public rental housing resources. Having regard to the current tight public rental housing supply situation and the increasing number of applicants on our waiting list, we see the need to maintain the current threshold for the time being. But I must stress, we will consider the situation from time to time with a view to further enhance the living space of those in public housing estates where possible. Indeed, over time, we've been able to increase the average living space per person, and we will continue to do so as resources permit. And indeed, for members' reference, the actual average living space per person for all public rental housing households has gradually been increased from around 11, just over 11, square metres internal floor area in March 2002 to nearly 13 square metres internal floor area in December of 2012. And, as I said, where resources permit, we will continue to improve the living space ratio. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The members in the line. Christopher Chung, Leung Kwok-hing, Meng Mei Kwun, Teng Ka Biu, Leung Yu Chung, KK Fong. 3 minutes each. Questions and answers. Chris Chung. Thank you, Chairman. I want to ask whether the housing authority has any distinction in terms of standards between old housing estates and new housing estates. Mr. Prescott.
Chairman, we adopt a general approach across all of the estates. We don't make any distinction. The only reality, of course, is that in the older housing estates we tend to have more larger flats than we do in the newer housing estates, simply because of the way the flat mix has developed over the years. But actually the allocation remains the same across all of our estates.
That's not what I mean. I think those living in old housing estate like Yuan and Hingman, they are very overcrowded. They don't have any partition inside the unit. Say for a 4-person unit, when the children have grown up, they even don't have any privacy in changing clothes. Let's don't talk about watching TV affecting one another. They really don't have any privacy even when making a change of clothes. And you still say you maintain this 7 square meters, 5.5 square meters. That's not up to standard, and that causes family problems. And that explains why many young people are wandering in the streets. They really don't have enough space at home. Public housing helps to solve housing problems, but it also creates social problems. Shouldn't you improve your standard? There must be a time to review the condition and try to upgrade the threshold. Mr. Prescott.
Chairman, yes, I agree with the honourable member. We do review from time to time. It comes down to a balance between the availability of resources and the demand for those resources. That's why we introduced these 2 TWOR and LSITS exercises, and we run them on an annual basis. It's not a one-off exercise, it's a continuing program, so that families that you describe, if they feel the situation is really intolerable, they may apply usually twice a year for TWOR, once a year for LSITS, because we understand the need. Circumstances do change, families grow, and we have to respond from time to time. The question of whether we should review the actual space allocations, again, that's something that we do keep in constant review, actually, and we do report to the Housing Authority from time to time as to what the ratios should be.
Well, Chairman, I think that for those units without partitions, you should try to upgrade them so that they can move into units which have partitions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In fact, we do look at that as one of the constraints when we're looking at the redevelopment of these older estates. And as I've said here before, we're now looking at the redevelopment program for older estates because, frankly, some of them actually is probably better to remove them completely rather than try and renovate them. But renovation is an option, and it's certainly something that we'll look at in parallel.
Mr. Kwok-hing. Well, they always say that they have no lands. Well, now there are 4 PLH estates. They have been demolished, and they are going to be used for private residential development. For example, Hon Members Estate, North Point Estate, Valley Road Estate, etc. And you say that you do not have land, but this land were originally used for PLH, and now you are selling them for private development. And the interim housing, you converted it into PLH. Well, why don't you use the North Point Estate site for PLH development? So what kind of government is this? The CY Leung says there is no land. Well, can you tell CY Leung that there are these 4 sites? They originally belong to the HD. Now you're saying that there's no land? Well, if I ask Kwok-hing to lend me $50,000, then should I give you $100,000 instead? Well, what kind of government is that? Well, why don't you tear down Protein Estate? You can move them to North Point Estate. You can build PLH there. Or if they want to live closer, they can live in Valley Road Estate. Well, many public housing tenants used to live there. Then what are you talking about? You always tell us there is a shortage of land. What kind of a government is that? How many blocks can be built there, and how many people can be accommodated there? Tell me. Otherwise, I'll stop talking to you. I'm just leaving this room. I think it's a waste of time. But Putin Estate, all the washrooms should be removed, and then you should move the people there. No, you have North Point Estate, Hon Members Estate, Kwok-hing Estate, and Valley Road Estate. You have 4 sites. What kind of government is this? A waste of my time. Mr. Pascoe, do you want to respond? I think the public would like to hear you.
Chairman, I think it's important because the Honourable Member seems to be mixing a number of different issues here. We've had to release land to make way for a number of very important major infrastructure developments. For example, Kwok-hing Estate is now being used to locate the MTR South Island line. Without that site, it would not have been possible to develop the site, the island line, South Island line. Likewise, Valley Road is being used for the central to Sha Tin to central line. The reality is that when we've released land, we have got compensation land for the same value in terms of number of units from government. So it's absolutely incorrect to say that the land that was taken away was not replaced. It has been replaced. The other point I'd like to make, Mr. Chairman, is that land is not just an issue about public housing. We need land for home ownership scheme, we need land for private housing. We do need land for all of the other uses that the community expects. And where government rationalises the use of land by looking at a comprehensive relocation, then of course any land, doesn't matter if it's private land or public land, could be resumed. We do resumptions in areas such as for new development areas. That's resumption of private land. I'm afraid even GIC facilities have to be considered. So it's not fair to say the government simply takes away on the one hand and doesn't replace, they do. And the reason that we gave up the sites is for very important infrastructural development. I think that's a rational approach. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Kwun. Chairman, I think some members have already mentioned it. The definition of overcrowded household is outdated. Now, are you using the standard of 5.5 square meters, or even if it's 7 square meters, it's still not appropriate? When we look at it from the modern point of view, you always talk about decent and safe. 5.5 to 7 square meters. I think in Hong Kong, this is not a decent size. So for this outdated definition, will you consider relaxing it? Will you review it? And second, after reviewing the definition, will you have more aggressive programs so that the overcrowding situation can be improved? Just now we talk about Putin Estate. You say that you cannot demolish these buildings because there are thousands of units there. You cannot give them up. But for overcrowding relief, I think it's just about a distribution or allocation of resources.
Chairman, as I said, yes, we do review the allocation standard from time to time. And let me stress, the 7, which we actually apply in each of these different cases, is what we regard as overcrowded. What we're allocating to is around 13. That's what we regard as acceptable minimum standard. And that's why you have to have different trigger points. You have to have what you're trying to achieve and what unfortunately falls below that level. And I accept those levels are very small, and that's why we have these programs. Can we be more aggressive? We mount the number of programs that we can afford to do, because obviously we only have a certain number of units that come up at any one time, and that's a factor of the new units that are built, the new production, as well as those units that are recycled. And by definition, we need the larger units for us to be able to accommodate the people that are under-occupied. So the constraint that I have is that we need more larger units to be able to rehouse the 3,000 odd families that we know are subject to this overcrowding. And so what we're trying to do is another part of the program is move people that are under-accommodated. In other words, they've got too much space, maybe 20 square meters or more in some cases, move them out of the large flats so that we can move in the families that need them. So it's a mosaic, if you want, of different things that we have to do to achieve the objective of improving the living conditions. And we will continue to do that.
各位，由於咧
Members. Now there are still 5 members who are waiting to ask questions, and originally we needed to end this meeting at 4:30, so I hope that with your approval we will extend this meeting to 4:45. No objection, right? So let's do that. Mr. Tan Ka-pil. I think the permanent secretary doesn't really understand the crux of the issue. We are not just talking about Tong. Well, although we got this letter from Tong residents, well, now we are talking about 5.5 square meters to 7 square meters. So for new household that's moving into PLH, the size is definitely bigger than 7 square meter per person. So I think we agree that the overcrowded household situations have to be improved. However, each year they are still put in a waiting list. Now, if it's a less than 5.5 square meter overcrowded household, even if they apply for 10 times, and if there's no unit available, then they cannot move. Well, in the past, we have seen successful cases. Maybe the average is 6.5 square meters, and when it's their turn, there's no unit available, and you may ask them to move to Ping Chau. So that's what I think. You are not attaching enough importance to this overcrowded households. Can you fine-tune some of your measures? For example, for those 5 to 7 square meters households, if they have taken part in these schemes for 6 times, can they be transferred automatically? Is there such an automatic door for them?
Mr. Chairman, the honourable members, I think, again, quite rightly pointed out one of the biggest dilemmas, that while we may have units, they may not be in the right location for the people who need to be rehoused, and we can't force them to move. I have to use the units I have available. I have to make sure that they're of the right size. And I certainly would never suggest that if someone is living, for example, in Oi Man estate, that they should move out to Tung Chung, if that's not what they want to do. I have to find something within, let's say at the very worst, within Hung Hom or Homantin for them to be able to move. That's part of our obligation to our tenants. And that's the dilemma. We don't have enough large flats in every location where we have overcrowding. But I can assure you we are working as hard as we can within the resources that we have to provide those alternatives. But it does mean, and I'll be here no doubt next month talking about people complaining that we're pushing people who are under-accommodated out. They don't like that either. And I have that dilemma. They don't like being moved to make way for people who are under-accommodated. So it's that juggle, I'm afraid. It's the same issue. Well, every day we're trying to deal with this issue.
Mr. Lang Yiu-chung, I think the HD should not act as an ostrich, hiding its head under the sand. I think you're cheating yourself. If you do not review the figure, if you insist that it's 5.5 to 7, then you will regard it as an overcrowded household and you will never solve the problem. We all know that this is not a good threshold. I think you should review the threshold. It should be increased, and you should look at the actual situation. now we have serious inflation in Hong Kong, and also Hong Kong has statutory minimum wage now. So you have to make adjustments accordingly. You cannot hide in the sand, turn a blind eye to such an issue. I've been criticizing you. Well, in the former government, you always said that 15,000 units would be all right. People need to wait for only 3 years, but that's not true. Now you insist on that number, and that's not an appropriate figure. So if you do not have the true figures, you cannot plan properly. So I think you should do a review so that people can live in a unit with appropriate size. This is point number one. And back to Po Tin Estate. You said that the biggest unit is 28 point something square meters, and actually that's less than 7 square meter per person. So actually all these tenants are eligible. They should be regarded as overcrowded households and be transferred. So I suggest that if you cannot solve the bathroom problem, then you should demolish one block, build one block at a time, so as to solve the Po Tin Estate problem. So you should do according to what I said, then you will solve the problem. Look at your past experience. Now we have to face the reality squarely. We should not cheat ourselves.
Mr. Chairman, as I said, we do review the situation from time to time, and I would like to be in a position to basically abandon the 5.5 metres squared minimum limit, move it up to 7, for example. That would probably be a starting point. Unfortunately, at the moment, I still have about 3,000, I think it is, who are still in that category. I have to deal with those. I must deal with those as a priority, and that's what we're trying to do. In terms of the suggestion for Po Tin Estate, as I say, we're happy to look at all these different ideas. Perhaps closing it down and simply removing everybody is a solution, and we'll try and rebuild on it. But that doesn't necessarily help immediately, I'm afraid. It still means 10 years' time we still have a problem, because that's the quickest I can do a redevelopment.
For the Po Tin Estate, well, we will pay a site visit there, and we will hold a special meeting for that. And we will ask the administration to conduct a viability study and try to find out how many options are available. That's about Po Tin Estate. But Leung Yiu-chung is talking about the issue generally. That is, can you demolish one block, redevelop one block at a time? Can that be a solution?
Mr. Chairman, that we call in situ redevelopment is possible, but you have to start with relocating the people from the first block. You have to find accommodation for them, because unfortunately the blocks are occupied. If they were vacant, and in some cases, like some of the older estates where we're anticipating redevelopment, we will stop allocating those units so we can clear a block without the need for redevelopment, then yes, we could do that. But unfortunately, in this case, we have quite a high population in Po Tin. I think it's over 6,400 and something occupied units. If I could find a whole block that was empty, then of course it would be easy. We'd just knock it down and start again. But I don't have that situation. So we'll have to look at all these options, and we'll do so, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kwok-hing. Well, if you look at the figures, you will know that you are wrong. 5.5 is 87 is 7 square meters, 205, 8 years from now. At that time, I remember I was a member of the HA. Well, at that time, you used the standard of 5.5 square meters, and indeed you were giving people 7 square meters per person. So 5.5 was overcrowded, and now it's 13, so 7 is used as the definition. So I think when you use 7, the standard at that time was 11 square meters per person. So for the past 26 years, you have been making all these changes. But how come the definition of overcrowded household has never changed? How come you think that, well, in the past, well, you give them 7 square meters per person. That was wrong, so now it should be changed to 13 square meters. Well, your concept has changed. However, the definition of overcrowded household has never changed. So this is double standard. So if you use the same proportion, then today it should be 7 and 11. That is for, well, it's under 7 square meters is overcrowded household, and for 11 square meters is a potentially overcrowded household. Well, can you move in this direction? And second?
And for those who have not been allocated, or rather who have been waiting, and you should give priority to those who have been waiting for a very long time. I mean, for those who are overcrowding, say if they are living in overcrowding conditions for more than 3 years or 5 years, they should be given priority for choosing a flat. Just like those who are in the general waiting list, they should have got a flat within 3 years. Can you change the standard?
The standard under review, and I certainly happy to look at the Honourable Member's suggestion. In terms of the implications, of course, it means that suddenly we go from a situation where we know we have about 3,000 odd people that are currently at or below the 5.5 standard, and suddenly we have a much bigger number, 26,000 people that need to be reaccommodated. Unfortunately, again, it will come down to setting priorities. And at the moment, I think it's still actually important to try and deal with these that are really the worst under-accommodated people first. Once I've dealt with them, then I think the options of raising the bar certainly are there, and I'd be very happy to do that if I could. So yes, that's something we'll do. On the second suggestion, in terms of the time, one of the issues, of course, is, as I said in response to an earlier question, while we can provide accommodation from among the units that we have, it's a personal choice of the individual as to whether they choose to accept an offer or not. And there's not much we can do to control that.
I'm giving priority. I'm saying giving priority, not to force them. Give them priority to choose.
At the moment, the priority is done on the basis of density, because let me remind the Honourable Member, sometimes you get the situation where a family which was not previously under-accommodated becomes seriously under-accommodated. So that it's not as if we have a static position. It's a moving position all the time, and we have to respond to that.
Dr. Fernando Chang, concerning overcrowded households, I agree with Mr. K.K. Fung. The standard is very backward. In comparison with Singapore, the average living space is 300 square feet. In the mainland, 360 square feet per capita. C.Y. Leung said that he visited Tianjin. He said that he came back and said that Hong Kong's average living space per capita should be increased. Otherwise, we can't retain talents. In our public housing estates, under the overcrowding program, every year there are about 1,500 units. If there are 240,000 households below 7 square meters per person, then it will take 16 years. I don't know whether my calculation is correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Prescott. According to that standard, that will take 16 years. And that is already a very poor standard. And can we still accept that for the next 16 years? Of course, there are a lot of people living in subdivided units, but the situation for the overcrowded households is also very bad. Now, can you speed up the transfer? Should you reconsider the unit mix in your new blocks? Should you not build more bigger units? Do you have a vision? Say, after so many years, the space per capita should reach a certain standard, and you work towards that standard, you plan towards that standard.
I really don't think you can compare Singapore or necessarily China with Hong Kong. Singapore has much more usable space than we do. China, there's no comparison. Also, their approach is very different. They have a home purchase approach, and people have more choice than we do with our rental approach. So the context is very different, the circumstances are very different. In terms of the standards, as I said, the numbers, the priority is for those 3,000 odd, where the 5.5, I think that's right, I don't think anyone would argue with me. In terms of 7 meters squared, which is where we bring in the LSITS, yes, I think once we get the resources, and we are building up to a much bigger production program, as you know, the chief executive has already announced the intention to go for 20,000 per annum in 5 years' time. Then, of course, we can look at this again. But at the moment, with the resource constraints, the site constraints, and the number of units I have, there's not much capacity for us to increase the ratio. Now, let me just quickly deal with this question of the size. We do an annual review of the forecast of production because, of course, we're producing flats 5 years ahead. So we need a decision now for delivery in 5 years' time. The demographics show us that actually the demand is greatest for smaller units. But nevertheless, we are including a number of 2- and 3-bedroom units even within the current demographic profile to take into account the smaller number of larger families that we have. That means that I have to rely in the main on our existing stock of larger units to provide the alternative accommodation for those people who are waiting for it. And as I say, we need to move people out of that large flat to allow the people who are waiting to move in, and that's a process that's ongoing.
Mr. Kwok-hing. Thank you, Chairman. Now, I've heard the point raised by Mr. Fernando Cheung with regard to the per capita space. We cannot just compare that with Singapore, the mainland. We have limited space, and we have to consider whether the per capita space in Hong Kong is comfortable. And at the same time, we have to face the reality of limited space in Hong Kong. As for moving from 5.5 to 7, I think the problem is a matter of will. Say, if we are to give 3,000 units at one go, that is not possible. But the department must have a plan to move from 5 square meters to 7 square meters. They have been living in crowded space for a very long time, and yet they see new housing estates with ample space. These overcrowded families cannot make any improvement to their situation, and people therefore have very strong feelings. In terms of solving the overcrowded household problem, the department must be more positive and come up with a long-term plan. You can't just wait for vacant units to turn up. You need to plan ahead. You need to have long-term planning to solve this problem. I hope the department will consider that. And some ask whether, say, a family has been applying for so many times, then the family will be given priority in terms of overcrowding relief. Of course, you can't move them from the urban area to Tin Shui Wai. They will not go there. But in the urban areas, we still have some units that can deal with overcrowding. Mr. Prescott.
Chairman, I accept what the honourable member is saying. I think we do need to come up with a program for this, and that's in fact what we've been trying to do over the last few years. I think it's important to bear in mind that we've had a pretty aggressive policy. We've reduced the number of households that were overcrowded in 2001. It was 18,000. It's now down to around 3,000, and we will continue to address that. In terms of the 7 square meters, which is the larger group, it was 40,000 when we started this in 2006. We've managed to reduce that to 24,000. So the program is working. Unfortunately, it's taking longer than anyone would like. And I think that's the frustration that I feel here today. And I can honestly say, if I can find more larger flats within our estate, then we will release them to the overcrowding relief program, because it's important that we help people to improve their situation. So I accept what the honourable members say.
張超雄議員1分鐘。
Fernando Cheung, just 1 minute. In the reply of the Permanent Secretary, he says that future production will mainly focus on small units because there is a greater demand. As for the supply of bigger units, they will rely on the moving out of existing households. In that case, it will be difficult for big families. For ethnic minorities, they have large households. As a result, they have to wait for a very long time for allocation, or they have to wait for a very long time for overcrowding relief. I hope the Permanent Secretary will consider providing more bigger units. I say for 5-person or more families, their waiting time on the general waiting list, how long do they have to wait?
That's correct. I can confirm that. The ethnic minority families do tend to be larger. I can also confirm that they are having to wait longer. As you know, we monitor our waiting list very, very closely to look at the time people spend on it and the time it takes to get them actually accommodated, not just offer their first offer. And larger families, particularly those above 5, so 6, 7, 8, are waiting a couple of years more than the average, and that's not acceptable. And that's why we're trying to deal with this problem, not just for existing overcrowded families, but also looking at the new ones coming in, because there is demand, we accept that, and we need to look at how we can respond to that demand. So I accept that point.
可唔可以請佢都提供？
We can provide the details as well. After the meeting, provide more details. Okay, please provide the details after the meeting. Okay, we have to end meeting here. Thank you.